Hey everybody, I was doing a little bit of work on Gorgar trying to figure out why some of those lights are not working and thought this would be a good time to go back over switches as I had one viewer who was a little confused by what I showed in my last video where I talked about these. So let me take a minute and go over these and then I'll actually show you where I've got the light on there, what I'm talking about. So these are switch adjusters and burnishers and flex stones. This is a cool kit that I got from a guy. He got these back in the 70s when he worked at where was it, Circus Circus. Anyhow, that's my cool old set. And these have a little gap in there, you'll see. And I just was able to get 3 brand new ones from marcosspecialties.com. And I'm very glad to be able to get those. They can be tough to find sometimes. So one thing that was confusing, I guess, is the gap on these. I'm trying to do this just looking through my camera here. Come on, focus back up there. Had it a second ago. Come on, focus. You can do it. There we go. That gap in that has nothing to do with the gap that you're setting in the switches. Now let's talk about switches real quick because there are several different types of switches that you encounter on pinball machines. The most common is going to be on the older styles and the older solid states. The electromechanicals and solid states are going to be these leaf springs or leaf switches, and these are what you're going to be adjusting. The other types of switches you can get are micro switches, which Pinbot has some on the ramps and things like that. Sometimes they'll use them under the play field, and on newer machines they use those much more. And you can also have magnetic switches, and the magnetic switches, there's usually not a whole lot you can do. Also, a lot of machines are just going to sensors for things. So what I'm talking about though is leaf switches right now, and this is a prime example of some leaf switches. So these are, just to give you some reference, the out lane, the in lane and the out lane on the right hand side. And what I was doing, let me grab a tool here. This guy right here should work fine. Is if you'll notice, you got to look at kind of the anatomy of a spring. Not all of them have this, I keep saying spring, of a switch. They can be a little bit different. Get my finger in the shot here. Where's it at? Okay. But you've got one switchblade. I can get a pointer here of some sort. One switchblade on the bottom and one switchblade up here. And in between those, for this one, you'll see there's a little extra tab there. And that's really to kind of help the switch stay in place. And how you adjust a switch can depend on what the switch is. In this case, these are for a rollover switch, so the ball has to roll over it. And if I can find it here, there it is. You can see how that operates. So I could actually stand to close that up a little bit. And the reason I want to is because switches are self-cleaning. There's a little tiny wiping action every time one of these switches works, and that helps keep it clean. So the way you do that is you take your little tool, and let me see if I can do this. I've got a light in the way here. I'll move it down. And I'll show you, let me get it on there, is you want to take and put your tool over the switch blade and that little metal tab. So you see I'm just grabbing it with it is all. That's all I'm doing with this tool, and then bending the switch at the base to close that up. So that wasn't very clear in my last video. Now you see that gap is much closer. Let's see if I can get in there and show it. I wish this would focus a little better. I can find the switch, and we can see that it closes and opens. And has a little bit of wiping action to it. So that's what we want. We want to make sure that it opens and closes. Switches are either normally opened or normally closed. This switch is normally open. So when nothing's going on with it, it should be open. You will also find with switches sometimes, oops, almost dropped this, that people have really messed with them and bent them into weird shapes. You really want the switch to try to stay nice and straight if possible. Just over time, it helps things work properly. And you may end up find as you fix old machines that you have to straighten switches out or replace them because some dummy went in there and just bent the tip of it down instead of the switch and the little piece behind it there. And again, not all switches have that little piece behind it. Some of them will also have a little piece of what's called fish paper in between the blades, which helps keep things from contacting that shouldn't. And you can also get switches in big stacks where you have to go through every switch in the stack because they all affect each other. But I hope that makes a little better sense as to what is going on with the switch adjusting and what I'm doing. Again, a switch like this doesn't need to have a super fine adjustment, whereas a bumper switch, you want those nice and fine and sensitive, or a slingshot, because you want the second the ball touches it, you want that to fire and keep your game fun and fast. So my camera's not wanting to focus. Did I get something on the lens? So I'm going to say goodbye. Bye.